Okay, so here we are for part 3, I think, of the children's DLA video. I say I think because I haven't finished editing it yet, but so far it's proving to be quite long, so I thought I'd break it up into a number of parts. So this is probably part 3, which is about help needed during the night. If this is the first of these children's DLA help videos that you've watched helping you to complete the form, then this is probably part 3, so you will need to go back and watch part 1 and part 2. Of course, if you're just filling out this section of the form, then that's fine, of course, carry on, please watch it. And if you're continuing from the previous ones and you stuck with me this whole time, thank you for that. So this section is about help needed during the night. So just to go over and define what that means. So for a child, nighttime will start when they go to bed, but in terms of the form that we're completing here, the way the DWP views it is at night is when you've gone to bed. You as the parent, of course, or carer or guardian for the child. So if you've gone to bed at 11 o'clock at night, you may go later, earlier, that's up to you. But if you've gone to bed at around about 11 o'clock and then you have to get up yourself during the night to assist the child with anything related to their health conditions and disabilities, then that is the night period. If they go to bed at 8 o'clock, for example, if they're under 10 and they're going to bed sort of that kind of time, and then they get up before you go to bed, then that constitutes being during the day, and so shouldn't be factored into this section. Should have been covered with things in the previous sections about help they need during the day. So the first question is, due to a health condition, do they wake and need assistance or supervision during the night? No or yes. We're going to assume that you're ticking yes on this. So, on average, how many nights each week do they need encouragement, prompting or assistance to get into, get out of, or turn in bed? So how many nights a week do they need help? Now, for the majority of people, it's going to be 7 nights a week when you're filling this in. But, quite often it might be that it's not that regular. It might be 3 out of 7, things like that. I would put 3 out of 7. If you want to be very specific, you can just put 3. That's fine. It does say how many nights each week, so the assumption is 7 days. So it might be 3, might be 4. You could put 4 or 5, 3 or 6. Depending, there is variability with a lot of conditions. Make sure you communicate that variability, as I've already said. How many minutes does this take each time? So what we're looking at here is, do they need encouragement, prompting or assistance to get into, get out of, or turn in bed? So that could be for any reason that they get in or out of bed. And it might need that they need encouragement or prompting to do that. So it might be that they need encouragement to get up and use the toilet during the night. It could be, night terrors. It could be all sorts of things. In terms of turning in bed, that could be because they have a breathing condition, for example, and they've sat in or lay in a certain position and it's caused them to have breathing problems, that sort of thing. How many minutes does it take each time to do that? So you've got to think about the entire process of what you're doing here and add that up. How many times a night do they need the help? So how many times during the night are you getting up to help your child? It might be 2 or 3. It could be 1. Doesn't really matter, as long as you're making it clear how many times it is that you do need to get up. On average, how many nights each week do they need encouragement, prompting or assistance to get to and use the toilet, manage nappies or pads? So this is about toileting. Obviously, a child may need support with toileting most nights. They may wear a nappy or a pad while they're sleeping, but that might need changing during the middle of the night. You may even have an alarm set to get up and do that if it's a fairly regular occurrence. It might not be you doing it. It could be a carer. Maybe your child is has carers who waking night carers who get up and do that. That's as it is. So how many nights each week is the first question. So again, 4 out of 5, 5, 6, 7, whatever. How many minutes does it take each time, and how many times a night do they need the help? Same as before. On average, how many nights each week do they need encouragement, prompting, or assistance to have treatment? So treatment could be anything. It could be applying a cream if they're very itchy and that's preventing them to sleep. It could be using some form of inhaler, something like that. It might be taking pain medication that they need to have at specific times, anything like that. So, and again, you might need to be encouraging them with that. They may not want to. It might just be that you need to prompt them to do it. So you have to wake them up and say, take your tablets or whatever. So again, how many nights each week? Out of 7. How many minutes does this take each time? And how many times a night do they need that help? How many nights each week do they need encouragement, prompting, or assistance to settle or resettle? That is quite important. Generally speaking, if children are disturbed in the night, whether they disturb themselves or you have to disturb them for some reason, it might be that they have difficulty settling back down in the case of them experiencing pain or discomfort or itching if they've got eczema, something like that. You may need to be engaged with them, read them a story, comfort them, whatever it is that they need to get them to settle back down and drop back off to sleep. So how many minutes does that take each time, and how many times a night do they need that help? So the next question is about supervision. How many nights each week do they need supervision because they're unaware of danger or may harm themselves or others? For a lot of children, whenever they're awake, as a parent, guardian, or carer, you are going to need to be observing them because of these things. In older children, that might not necessarily be the case. They may be managing their own things during the night, and you're not actually having to interact with them particularly. Most mums, I know, tend to sort of sleep very lightly if they know their children are likely to get up or be moving around or whatever, and tend to respond to that. If that's a need, as in they need you to respond to that to keep them safe, to make sure they don't, go downstairs and start cooking on the stove, or that they might fall down the stairs, or, whatever danger it might be that they're unaware of. If you're needing to help them with that, then that's absolutely fine. If you're just waking up because you were disturbed and actually, you check on them and you go, "Are you okay, love?" "Yeah, that's fine." That may not 100% count on this. But yeah, so have a think about that. And again, how many nights each week, how many minutes it takes, and how many times a night. So an extension of that question is supervision, because they may wander about. Well, obviously, I just said in the previous one, about them having falls or going downstairs and putting the stove on. Think about that with this one as well. Do they wander about? Wandering is a bit of an odd word, because wander suggests that people are moving around without a purpose. It might be that the child does have a specific purpose as to why they're up and about. So, try not to think that wander sort of means that they're just, randomly wandering around the house going, what am I doing, sort of thing. It might be that they're specifically doing something. It might be, like I say, that they've decided to administer their own medication because they don't want to disturb you, and actually you prefer to be disturbed, and help them with that. And again, how many nights a week, how many minutes, and how many times a night. How many nights each week do they need supervision because they have behavioural problems? Now, again, this does seem like a repeat of this question here, but behavioural problems can sort of manifest in different ways. For example, it might be a child with, quite pronounced autism may not have an awareness of the time of day, and so they might get up in the middle of the night. I remember when I worked in care, being woken up in the middle of the night. We weren't waking nights, but we did sleep in shifts, and there was this tremendous noise, and I thought, honestly, what is going on? So went upstairs and found that the young man that we were there to support had decided it would be time to watch a lot of Thomas the Tank Engine videos back to back with full volume. That was great fun. Yes, so there could be things like that going on, which essentially isn't it's not like they're pulling out their own hair or doing anything damaging to themselves. It just might be that particular behaviour disturbs other people in the house that's there at the time. And again, how many nights each week, how many minutes does it take each time, and how many times a night do they need the help? So no real opportunities here to kind of go into detail about that condition and what's going on. So as I've said previously, do write that down either in the appropriate section at the end of the form. That's fine, or put it onto an extra piece of paper if you need to go into more detail about that, exactly what that is, and you may need to. So with the example I just gave, it was quite random when a young man would get up. I mean, he, like I say, wanted to watch what he wanted to watch at that time of night on that particular occasion, but that didn't happen every night of the week. But that kind of unpredictability is actually an important factor, because if it's unpredictable, you don't know when that's going to have an impact on you and then have an impact on your caring ability on the next day. In that example, I was quite fortunate in that when my shift ended at 10 o'clock, I got to go home. For you as a parent, you don't get to go home. You're already home. And your caring responsibilities go throughout the day. So how that impacts on you is quite significant, because if you're providing the care to the child throughout the day and you're doing that with very little sleep and very tired, that's going to be really hard work. So that's the night section. Additional information about care needs. Question 71. This is quite important. A lot of children, they will have care needs from their date of birth. Some may develop them at a later stage. Try and be as exact as you can with this. Again, we've got this problem, I think, with this one, that if we put in a date, Feb 12, then we get this pop-up saying no, it's got to be in date format. So if you're not sure exactly and you're filling it in by typing, then put in the first day of the month, I would suggest. 06, no, there wouldn't be a child if they were born in 06, would they? Let's say 14. So, hang on. Yes. 01. 02 2014, that's it. Yeah, there we go. And it will take the thing. Obviously, if you're writing it by hand, then you can just write Feb 2014 or whatever. Tell them roughly when that started. So normally the child can only get the care part of disability living allowance if they have needed help for more than 3 months. So that's basically giving you some guidance on the cooling off period. So if your child's been diagnosed with a condition and has developed a condition, and you sort of apply for DLA straight away, then you may not get it for 3 months. They may agree it, but they may not start paying that until 3 months have passed. It's similar with attendance allowance, that there's a 6-month cooling off period with that. So we sort of expect to see that. The only difference is if you've ticked the special rules box. So that's important. Obviously, they will not backdate the claim that you make anywhere past when the claim is first either requested or received if you didn't request it and you just downloaded the form and filled it in yourself. So if it's been 2 years that they've had the condition and could have been eligible for DLA, even though you put that in there, it won't be backdated to that date. It will just go from either the date you requested the form or the date you submitted the form, assuming that the 3-month cooling off period has passed. Tell us anything we need to know about the difficulties with their daily living and care needs, or how their needs change from day to day. Question 72. And it does say that if you need more space, please tell us at question 89 or on a separate piece of paper, and please put the child's name, national insurance number and date of birth on any extra pieces of paper you send us. So there's really no limit to the amount of information that you can write, but if the information you're writing is specific to a question that's been previously asked where there wasn't enough space for you to write that in, then do make sure you indicate which question it was that this piece of information is relating to. That will make things simpler. Equally, you can just put a general statement in there as well about your child, particularly where things don't quite fit the questions that have been asked. When I first started training and learning how to do DLA forms and attendance allowance forms and things like that, the training was very much around painting a picture of how the daily living was for that individual. It's a bit less of that these days. Be very specific about what's going on. Be very specific about what you're doing in terms of support for the child. Try not to be too emotional with that, though it is important for you to get across any emotional impact that is having on you. The impact it has on you emotionally isn't really factored into the assessment process as such, but if that emotional issue is then impacting on your ability to provide care and support to the child, then that might be something that you want to reference. About you, please tell us about yourself, not the child. So surname, full name, Mr., Mrs., Miss, Doctor, so on and so forth. Your date of birth, your national insurance number, that's very important. Your address if different to the child's. So here where it says please put the child's name, national insurance number and date of birth on extra pieces of paper, if you haven't got a national insurance number for the child as yet, which is quite likely, then use your national insurance number, which you will have recorded here. Your address if different to the child's. As I mentioned, it might be that the child is having some form of care, and that care may be paid for, and they may live at a different address to you, but if you're the responsible parent or guardian, then your address. If you want to speak to somebody in Welsh, tick that box. A phone number that they can contact you on, These days it's mostly mobiles that we're putting in there, so you can be reached. Some people still don't have mobile phones and have landlines. That's absolutely fine. Some people might be using text phone if they've got hearing issues, or even in some cases people with sight loss might use some kind of braille version of a text phone, things like that. So that can go in there. What your relationship is to the child. So you may be a direct parent, next of kin. It might be that you're a legal guardian that's been appointed, a foster carer, for example, or so on. What your nationality is. They always want to know what your nationality is. Are you waiting to hear or getting income support? You'll know whether you are or not. If no one said anything to you about that and you've not completed a form, then the answer will be no. And again, if you are waiting to hear about income support there, if anyone else is waiting to hear about income support, pop that in there. Bank account details are very important. If they award the payment, you'll need to fill that in so they know where it goes. Question 89, as I say, I usually use this as I demonstrated earlier for sort of putting in the details that are relating to the sort of first few questions in the form. But again, you can continue question 71 down here. Was it 71? Let's scroll back. 72. So there we go. So you can just carry on 72, writing down there. But of course, this might be used for extra information about medication or extra health professionals that are involved, those kind of things there. And then we've got the declaration. Do not send off the form without signing the declaration. If you give wrong or incomplete information, or if you do not report changes straight away, you may be prosecuted, need to pay a financial penalty, have the DLA allowance reduced or stopped, be paid too much disability living allowance and have to pay the money back. If we pay you less than we should, we may pay you the money that we owe you. They may, but not always. And of course, you're signing to say that the DWP may use the information which it has now or may get in the future to decide whether you are entitled to the benefit you're claiming for the child, any other benefit you may have claimed, or any other benefit I may claim or be awarded in the future. So this declaration is declaring this form. It's also declaring other forms that you may or may not have filled in or may be yet to fill in. So, but you won't be assessed unless you sign the form, print the name and date it. So before you send it off, do go through the checklist, make sure that you've done all of these things, and there's information about how the DWP collects and uses information on you. Now, it is important to note here, not hugely important, but just a sort of side thing, that the DWP is one of those departments that is that has, let's say, special consideration when it comes to GDPR. So whatever GDPR rules apply to companies, private companies or third sector organisations, they might go through your GDPR consent with you and be telling you what exactly they're using your data for. The DWP doesn't really need to apply those rules to themselves in the same way. They do have things to let them off in that sense, and that is finally the end of the form. So you might find that having watched these videos, you are about ready to jump in the river. Please don't do that. Break down the filling of this form into easy bite-sized chunks. It is a very long form, as you can see, and it is always difficult when approaching something like this to kind of think about every possible eventuality and things like that. The more information that you get across, the more likely it is to go through. Do bear in mind there are long waiting lists with processing these forms. There are people that I've supported at the moment, the current time of when this video was actually published. There are these things. If you're watching this at a much later date, things may have improved and things might be going through quicker. And obviously it's different for everybody. And the more medical conditions your child has and the more medical evidence that they need to go through, the longer it will take. It is possible on some occasions that the DWP may want to get in touch with you and either speak to you over the phone or do some kind of face-to-face assessment to assess your claim, or if they've got any queries or questions about it. Again, if you are claiming for a child and your immigration status may be called into question for any reason, even if everything you've done is above board and you've got residential status or a British passport or anything like that, if you've been out of the country for more than 4 weeks at a time in the last 3 years, those kind of things, they may want to come round and do a spot check, those kind of things. So yeah, do bear that in mind. So you could get a phone call about this at any point, and as I said previously, it might be that any other people involved in the care of your child may get contacted as well. So if you think there's a possibility someone could be contacted about this, do give them a heads up, just in case they are. So there we go, that's disability living allowance for a child under 16. If you have found this video or these videos helpful to you, then please do like, share and subscribe. If I've bored you to death, I apologise. That's not my intention here. It is just to help as much as possible with this. Best of luck with it, and best of luck for the future for you and your child. And yeah, thanks very much for watching.